I'm Mary, and here we have Hassan Tahan, Mario Torres, and Mario Zuniga. Today, we will present Matt Moreau's dilemma. First, I will be introducing the case, defining issue that what Matt will be facing, and evaluate the problem and the situation. And after that, Hassan will go into quantitative analysis to look the data, ethical issue, and legal issue. Continue with Mario Torres, describe what missing in the company. That may be the most important that we are missing. And the assumption, and bring what alternative the decision maker will bring. And in the end, our presentation, Mario Zuniga will spell out the present of the pros and cons to the alternative, and to bring what the decision maker will do and how should this be done to solve all this problem. Let's restart here. Matt Moreau facing a dilemma if he should hiring Sally Armitage or not for his new department. Sally is one of the best candidates that the company has. She holds all the experiences that the company asking for to do the roles. Plus, on the other hand, there are 3 other superiors in the company has been highly recommended her for her good performance. Since while she's running another store, she's always has an excellent performance appraisal. Nothing company found about her weakness. But there is a big issue in the company pointed by Chuck Magnus, the president of the company. The company been having so many issues with the life, and one of them is kind of like a lack of the customer service and how to bring a new atmosphere to the company. Stephen Judson, as a corporate manager, never met to call Tony Abbott, who knows Sally professional and personal. And they find out after that conversation that Sally been out in and out hospital due to her recovery from her cancer. Along, she lived away from the city, plus she is divorced and living with her only child. And with this conversation, Tony have a doubt, since this is a high-stress job, could cause Sally's condition to deteriorate. This decision have to be presented to the president of the company by Christmas, or at least in the 6 months. Next, I will forward this to Hassan.
Yes, my name is Hassan. I will talk here about the qualitative analysis. And I will discuss here the business and legal and ethical issues. In this case, Sally manager has known her for a while, and her medical condition can be biased and protective of her. What should Mario do? 2 or 3 people should be reached out to instead of only Tony. However, per her performance, despite her medical condition, there has been no impact on her performance, keeping aside the time off she had to take for treatment. Sally is competent and has delivered to her full potential and has history of success right from when she was a clerk. Sally is a goal-oriented person. but that could be dangerous to her situation and affect the company negatively. This is the speculation. Her previous work hasn't suggested of this, and hence it would be incorrect to assume that she will be stressed and will not be able to perform per requirement. The ethics issue here, no employee should be denied an opportunity based on their medical condition if there is no impact on their deliveries. Again, this depends on the company policy, and the assumption here is that their Bantinx is an equal opportunity employer. Tony has shared his concern about her commute, her personal life, and medical life, suggesting Mario to consider the situation and anticipated offer to Sally for position in head office. Although an employee's personal life affects their work, it's subjective to the employee's work-life balance and how will they cope. In this case, it's clear that despite Sally's medical condition, she has coped pretty well and there hasn't been an advanced impact on her success. So assuming that the position change would affect her success is conventional and assumption at this point. At the same time, knowing that she requested for experience in the head office indicates she is ready for the challenge. Ethically, she should be offered the position with complete information on what's expected of her. As she has been divorced for 6 years and with her medical issue, she's still getting an excellent performance appraisal every year. And during her battle with cancer, she has been promoted 2 times. Additional to that, she has the President Shank Magnus recommendation. Sally is looking for a head office experience based on her 15 years experience. This was the qualitative analysis. Now I will move to Mario.
Thank you, Hassan. And the thing that I will be discussing about will be the missing information that we have from this case. As you probably will have noticed, we didn't have much of the qualitative information. And that is because the case does not dwell that much into numbers or any specifics about the quantitative analysis that we should have. So most of the information that we have concerns mostly on the amount of employees that we have currently at this moment, which in turn could actually benefit for us in a way that they could tell us the amount of people needed for this new department that it's being created. In addition to that, since sales has been mentioned a lot during one of the qualifications for Armitage to be moving to this job, we also don't have information about the total sales, specifically the total sales for low-performing offices, which in turn could also benefit in our quantitative analysis a little bit more. So combining the two of them could actually give us the amount and of course the name of other managers or other employees who could be potential candidates who also have the exact same qualifications as Armitage. So the best way for us to find that kind of information will be on financial records as well as anything related to human resources. So that way we can find not only the number, but also the sales that we require for this information. So based on that, we can also move forward with the assumptions that we can make about this case based on the lack of information or based on the information that we have presented, but it wasn't delved into. The first of them, since we noticed that one of the stores that Armitage had was Canadian, we can assume that being a Canadian company, basically that means that all the equal employment opportunity regulations that apply normally for both hiring and promotion, as well as anything related to confidentiality with medical records, will apply the same. In addition to that, we can also assume that because of the work ethic of Ms. Armitage, there should be also a small, maybe a handful of other managers who not only are very qualified as Ms. Armitage is, but also have the exact same kind of records with low-performing stores as Ms. Armitage has. So in addition to that, we can also expect that there has been no communication with Armitage, of course, but also with any other candidate as of right now. The only three people that know are, of course, the president of the company, Ms. Armitage superior, and also our superior as well. And because of that, we also have two other assumptions that we can make about this case. We can also assume that if Armitage gets offered the job, we can assume that her health will deteriorate with a new job. However, there is no certainty that the cancer will return because of that. We can assume that, but it's more likely to assume that her health will deteriorate because of the high stress and the high volume of work, based on what the case is telling us as well. And in addition to that, just in the same case, looking at the other side of the coin, if we're not offering this, if Morrow is not offering this job to Armitage, we can also assume that there will be some legal repercussions to this case. So based on that, the two more than likely alternatives will be based on the huge dilemma. Whether should we hire her or not hire her? So the alternatives will be as follows. If we hire her and we offer this job to her, of course, we will have to explain the negative connotations of the job, as well as what she will have to do and what will she be required to do. And the risk associated with allocating her to another place. And of course, the high possibility that the health will be diminished at that sense. Of course, taking that as a risk. The other alternative will be also not to offer the job to Armitage, which will be basically basing ourselves on what Abbott is saying, to use as a deterrent against hiring her, and looking for someone else instead who may be as qualified as her. That, of course, will give us more time to look for someone else with the already low time that we have already to look for someone. And there also may be the possibility that we will get a discrimination suit based on her health that we could, for example, be facing at that moment. So after that, I will pass it to Mr. Mario Zuniga so he can continue forward with our results in this case.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. So one of the things that has become very obvious for all of us is that the assumptions that were made are in many ways real life scenarios here. We have Mary presented the dilemma that we had at hand. Hassan gave us a really good analysis on the facts behind the case. And then Mr. Torres gave us some alternatives, some of the things that can occur as a result of the two alternatives. My job is to sum it up, give you the two alternatives that Mr. Torres mentioned with their possible outcomes, then give our recommendation to the third alternative and the outcome of that, and then give you the action item, the action plan on who must take action and what exactly steps they must take and when they must take these steps in order for it to be successful. So one of the first alternatives mentioned in the pros and cons is to not give this opportunity or not extend this opportunity to Miss Sally Armitage. Now, some of the cons in this is going to be that you can't make this decision based on the opinions solely that Mr. Abbott has, which is what we're doing, is putting a lot of weight into the recommendation or into the concern of one single manager, because all of the other facts mentioned here completely contradicts the lack of performance or the pitfalls that may come from her health or personal issues. So Sally has a good track record. She has a good recommendations from even the president of the company. Not giving her this opportunity negates her her choice and her ability to make her own decision on whether she can or cannot perform the job. Possible con coming from this is that you look at legal issues, you look at ethical dilemmas, and such discriminating against protected groups such as employees with disabilities or even genders, because at this point you would be making a huge assumption that because she's a divorced woman, she would be somehow less capable than a divorced man. Second alternative would be to approach her and proactively give her this job or ask her to apply directly. Now, someone as driven as Sally, this can also be a big potential pitfall. This is something that someone so driven and such a hard worker listening and hearing a recommendation from the president of the company, Mr. Judson, who is in charge of personnel, and even Matt Morrow, who is her potential next employer or next direct supervisor. She may even feel the surmountable pressure to go into the job and ignore what she has going on in her personal life. The potential pitfall there is that she goes into a job that she cannot fulfill. Her health deteriorates because of the stress. And of course, because she is taken care of and she's the sole guardian of a child, that she now can't juggle both her personal life and her work life. One of the greatest assets to a company is actually their time. Time is extremely valuable. Onboarding an employee may take 3 to 6 months. Hiring the wrong person may cost you years for you to come back off and have time lost, which is revenue loss, which is money loss. That is the potential pitfall of approaching her directly. Now, our recommendation in the third alternative is, instead of keeping her out of the candidate pool unfairly or pressuring her into applying for a job that we don't know that she's interested fully in, although she's given some type of attention to going into corporate management, not necessarily any assumption that she wants to go into a whole new branch or a whole new project, is to just make the job available to everyone that reports to Mr. Abbott. All of her peers, everyone who listens, send us in a larger memo, announcing in the next corporate meeting or conference call that there is a new opportunity. There's a new opportunity with great rewards, but also great responsibility that will be high pressure and that will be critical for the company's success. That we not only mention that it's an available opportunity, but that there's a lot of work to be put into this, that there's a lot of time, that there's a lot of sacrifice that goes into it, so that anyone that applies, not just Sally, is aware and they know what they're getting into. Our prediction is that we do this, Sally may apply. And if she does, she already weighed the consequences of going into a high-stress job. She may not apply, and at that point, if she doesn't apply, then the dilemma is not a dilemma any longer. Now, the plan of action is that we announce this and we give it a fair playing field and announce it to a large quantity of people. The person that must act on this action plan is Matt Morrow. He is the hiring manager. He should take it upon himself to get this opportunity. He must do this immediately because time is very precious. He may have a lot of candidates to interview, and he should do it in a way that is impartial and that does show no favoritism to not any one employee. Now, some of the things that he may take to precaution and to ensure he makes the right decision is include, as my colleagues alluded to, 3 additional managers with no ties to anyone that's applying to give interviews aside from him, maybe panel interviews, 360 reviews and such, and remove people like Abbott who have a personal bias or they have a stake in the game, because he is someone who, to his own admission, doesn't want to lose a high performer such as Sally. So his personal biases and people with personal biases should be completely removed from the process in order to make it a good one. Thank you for your attention and listening to our presentation. This concludes it, and we move on to any of your questions.